I decided to change from being a public school teacher here, who was not particularly happy, to make an attempt to improve myself. Not nearly as conservative as it is now. Now it's very restricted from what I understand. Many women did not dress with the chador, which is like a sheet. The Savak was reputed to be absolutely ruthless and bloodthirsty in the service of squashing all opposition to the Shah. And there was a lot of stories on the street of the tortures that they employed. Electric shock, beatings, shoving various objects into the human body, and stuff like that. It was ugly. And I wanted to do that. I mean, my objective was to learn as much as I could, so I immediately needed to buy a few things when I arrived, and I went into a store and looking for stuff, and what I couldn't sort of identify on the shelves because it was all written in Farsi. What I couldn't find, I couldn't ask for it because I couldn't say a word except maybe hello. And it was so frustrating that I went immediately out of the shop, went straight back to school and went to the office and said, I gotta find a teacher. Because if I can't speak Farsi, this is not going to work. So I found this guy, and I studied with him. I don't know. And I wasn't about to try and master the language of Farsi in its original context of alphabetization and proper writing. So I translated it all into my own phonetic spellings, and then I just kept I'd write the word over here, and okay, you want to say donkey is this, donkey is khar, so khar, so you're K-H-A-R. I just learned, I mastered a basic set of, do you have toilet paper? How much does it cost? Thank you very much, and then of course you have to write down numbers, money. You want to buy stuff, you have to be able to say the words for the money, and that's how I operated. And I just expanded out, and I went on the street every day because I had such a cushy job. I had practically no teaching hours, and there were no coaching jobs available because they were all sort of taken by a bunch of other people. So I was on the street every day, studying Farsi, immersion. The first thing that happened that really got things going, aside from sort of routine stuff, the quote Savak stuff, the worst thing that happened was this, there was a fire in a theater. It was down in a southern city, and they had, for some reason, kept all of the emergency exit doors locked. And I don't know whether the fire was set or the fire started, but when the fire started, it was pretty hard to get out of the theater, and I think a couple hundred people got fried, and I think that they started blaming it on the government. That was one thing. And then one day, it was a Friday morning, which is the equivalent of Sunday. We were having our Friday morning soccer game. And when the ball went off the pitch, I remember running after the ball, and all of a sudden there was a barrage of gunfire, really big caliber and medium caliber guns, automatic, machine gun stuff, and individual pistol shots and rifle shots and all that stuff. So the game stopped, we took off, and immediately in going down the street, as soon as we entered a shop to grab something to drink and eat, the people had changed from being friendly to being hostile, and they were angry, and they were spouting off stuff about Jimmy Carter and the Shah only spends money on weapons and doesn't spend money on schools and hospitals, which is probably very true. You know, and America's bad and the Shah's bad and all that, you know, and so that was the beginning, and it kept repeating itself. I encountered a lot of that, and I kept hearing the same lines. Jimmy Carter this, the Shah that, airplanes, tanks, guns, no hospitals, no schools. So I kind of figured out that it was like a mantra that had been sent across and distributed out through the mosques, and everybody was hearing the same song and dance. From Khomeini and his followers who were exiled in Paris. And that was kind of the start of it, and then there were just demonstrations, and we had martial law, you know, you couldn't be in the street between like 6 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning, you couldn't be in the street. And almost every night there were blackouts and there were demonstrations, and the streets were patrolled constantly with big, huge trucks with 20, 25 guys armed and a machine gun mounted in the back pointing out. So I stayed in Jordan 7 years, and it was a very good school. It wasn't a particularly big school. It was, I don't know, between about 400 kids, more or less, which is pretty small. But anyway, the quality of education was really good. The teachers were cool. We have a lot of really good friends that we made there, and still, you know, maintain relationships with them. Yeah, I mean, generally, I think that the Palestinians have gotten a really bad deal. And I just can't stand the guys like Netanyahu. And the one before him was worse. Ariel Sharon is considered by many people to be a war criminal. He stood by when, during the Lebanese Civil War, I think his name was Amin Gemayel. But the family name is Gemayel. I can't think of his name, but he was the son of, he was one of the Gemayel's boys. He was the leader of Lebanon. And he cut a deal with the Israelis, and I'm not exactly sure what that deal entailed. But shortly after that, he cut that deal and sort of said, okay, well, you know, you can come in here and the Christians, the Lebanese Christians will be, you know, sort of your allies. Shortly after that, they blew him to smithereens. And the retaliation for his death was taken out on the Palestinian refugee camps in Beirut, and they went in and slaughtered over 2,000 people. But the Israelis were already in front of the Palestinian refugee camps. They had them encircled with tanks and trucks and stuff, right? So the Christian militias couldn't get in unless the Israelis turned around and said, oh yeah, well, we can't see you, you're not here. They let them in. They just let them go in. And they were in there for 2 days. And most of the people they killed were killed with knives.
Those 11.
They killed everybody.
Men, women,
babies,
children.
they killed women, they killed old people. They didn't find very many guys. There weren't any or very many fighters in there. They were strictly non-combatants, and they just went in and they slaughtered them. 2,000 people.
Wow.
And the Israelis basically said, sure, no problem.